Yes, we are 5 days past the International Day of Cooperative celebrations, but I think many of you will agree that the theme this year, Cooperatives for Climate Action, warrants more discussions, endless discussions. So thank you all for coming. My name is Loretta Hoffman. I am the Interim Communications Director at the International Cooperative Alliance. And joining you from my home office in Washington, D.C., I will be the moderator today. So for the next 90 minutes or so, we will hear from cooperatives, representatives of governments, international organizations, and multilateral entities on how together we can build better for cooperatives that are taking action against climate change. So, as we all know, technology we have working for us today is fantastic, but only when it works. So before we begin, I have a few instructions to share with all of you. We have 2 language channels today as we're offering simultaneous Spanish translation. If you'd like to listen to this webinar in Spanish, please change the channel. To do this, click on the globe icon you'll see at the bottom right of your screen, and you will have the option to change languages. I have several of my colleagues working hard with me today in the background. If you have any issues with the audio or video, or if you have any questions for us, please use the chat box. We will do our very best to respond. And we will also allocate some time at the end of our program today to give our speakers an opportunity to respond to some of the questions I know many of you will have. So use the Q&A box to list your questions, and you can find that at the bottom too. And lastly, please be aware that this webinar is registered and is being recorded for future use on COPAC constituencies communications channels, okay? So let's start. So first, I would like for all of us to please welcome Mr. Alejandro Verrier, the Charge d'Affaires and Interim Ambassador of Argentina to the United Nations. Mr. Verrier, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues and friends. It is such a pleasure for me to be participating in this commemoration of the International Day of Cooperatives, even if it is 5 days later. Argentina considers that the governments bear the primary responsibility for achieving sustainable development. However, they cannot do it alone. The magnitude of the challenges faced in the achievement of the 2030 Agenda requires the active participation of different stakeholders, including civil society and the private sector. Strongly supported by the values of mutual aid, solidarity, responsibility, democracy, and equity, cooperatives are in a position to make a significant contribution to an agenda that is people-centered, protects the planet, and fosters prosperity. Both the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda recognize the wide diversity of the private sector and call on all, including cooperatives, to put their creativity and innovative capacity at the service of the search for solutions to challenges for sustainable development. We believe that your engagement is essential. In Argentina, cooperativism has been part of the response to common challenges throughout our national history, with these first cooperatives being created as early as in the 19th century. Argentina is pleased to note that this traditional sector of the country has developed and diversified, reaching to more than 30,000 registered and active cooperatives nowadays, with a presence throughout the national territory. In their daily actions, cooperatives have the capacity to generate a positive impact on a wide range of sustainable development goals and targets, including those related to the eradication of poverty and hunger, the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, the economic growth with decent work for all, and the combat of climate change, among many others. As we will see in a few minutes with the example of the Argentine cooperative Creando Conciencia, in which social inclusion and protection of the environment converge. Argentina supports cooperatives as a form of participatory, democratic, and distributed ownerships, and believes that the social economy occupies a key role not only in addressing the development strategy of the country, but also in promoting social inclusion and being a crucial instrument for the empowerment of social sectors that are in vulnerable situations. As an essential component of the social economy, cooperatives are important generators of social cohesion. Therefore, it is important to promote awareness of the sustainable development goals in the cooperative sector, stimulate their contribution through voluntary commitments, and improve the understanding of their contributions to achieve sustainable development, fostering their participation as partners in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a very fruitful seminar today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verdier. Let's move this along. So next, with a video, we will hear from Daniela Batz, Director of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Division for Inclusive Social Development.
Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, it is my great pleasure to join you in celebrating the International Day of Cooperatives 2020 on the theme Cooperatives for Climate Action. We, as the Committee for the Promotion and Advancement of Cooperatives, known by the acronym of COPAC, decided on this theme towards the end of last year, before the outbreak of COVID-19. The pandemic has impacted all our lives profoundly. It has changed the way we work, the way we learn, even the way we maintain social contacts. And cooperatives have been working to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19, from providing protective equipment to frontline workers, converting factories to promote protective equipment, ensuring the safety of their workers while still protecting their incomes, and many actions that reaffirm their commitment to community and provision of decent work. The pandemic has also moved much of our lives to online platforms, working online, schooling online, shopping online, and so on. And this underscores the increasing importance of information technologies. We risk a more unequal society if the digital divide remains, and cooperatives have to invest to upgrade their capacities to conduct businesses online and to help close the digital divide for a more inclusive and better recovery. While our attention is rightly focused on COVID-19, the climate emergency remains acute as ever. A tragic reminder came in April this year, when Cyclone Harold cut its deadly and destructive path through Vanuatu, Tonga, and Fiji. Pacific Island states, who contribute least to climate change, are some of the most vulnerable countries to its impact. Any solution must be international, which is another example of the need to reinvigorate the multilateral system and the spirit of solidarity. A silver lining of the pandemic's economic impact is the reduction in emissions and consequent improvement in air quality, and cooperatives and their development partners should take this opportunity to promote a greener recovery. Let us remind our governments, our members, and communities of the importance of implementing the Paris Declaration. And let us use this International Day as a reminder of the key role of cooperatives in combating the climate emergency and in building a more sustainable future for all. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have another video greeting from the International Cooperative Alliance President, Mr. Ariel Guarco.
Excellencies, COPAC members, dear cooperators, warm greetings to all of you as we celebrate the International Day of Cooperatives. This year's theme for the International Day of Cooperatives is Cooperative for Climate Action. I invite you to reflect on our cooperative values and how we can show the world that we can build a strong foundation to fight climate change. We depend on the Earth's natural resources to give our children and us what we need to live and grow. Climate change is increasing disaster risk for millions of the world's most vulnerable people. Since 1990, global carbon dioxide emissions have increased by 50%. Therefore, it's not surprised that 800 million people on our planet are vulnerable to severe droughts, toxic air pollutants, rising sea levels, and more powerful and frequent natural disasters like hurricanes and floods. The climate experts have provided many viable solutions to climate change, such as mitigation approaches through adaptation measures and appropriate management of natural resources to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Cooperatives take into account this advice, for example, by applying them in the agroforestry cooperatives or by engaging in areas of green transition and circular economy, and also in the renewable energy cooperatives or waste management cooperatives. This year, the COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that a crisis of this magnitude knows no borders. The pandemic is still testing us, and I am proud that even in these hardest circumstances, the cooperative movement is standing up to move community forward and support them to overcome this health, social, and economic emergency. COVID-19 has amplified the tragic effects of social inequalities. The same poor and the vulnerable population will continue to be affected the most by climate change. In 2019, the United Nations Special Rapporteur pointed out that we risk a climate apartheid scenario where the wealthy pay to escape overheating, hunger, and conflict, while the rest of the world is left to suffer. The climate change effects, just like COVID-19, will affect people from all walks of life in every country, on every continent. It will impact the availability of necessities like water, food, energy, health, housing, education, and the economy in general. These negative impacts will increase exponentially according to the degree of climate change that ultimately takes place and will immensely affect people in vulnerable situations. As cooperators, we need to remain true to our cooperative identity and change this. The time for cooperation and concern for the community is now, so the future is better for our communities and our children. Planet and people should continue being in the center of our work, promoting daily an inclusive and sustainable economy for all. I applaud all of you who are doing your part. Every single effort counts, and I urge you not to stop. Together we can do better. Celebrate all your successes with your community and ask them to join you in taking action. Happy International Day of Cooperatives.
Wonderful. Now, before we continue, I see that we still have a lot of participants coming into the room. I'd like to remind all of you that we do have simultaneous translation, Spanish translation, and if you'd like to listen to this webinar, this program in Spanish, please click on the globe icon at the bottom right of your screen to listen to it in Spanish. Now, moving on. We will now pivot our focus to cooperatives in action. So to kick that off, we have the honor of welcoming in person this time, Mr. Victor Van Buren. He's the director of the Enterprise Department at the International Labor Organization. Mr. Van Buren is also the chair of COPAC. Welcome, Mr. Van Buren. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and hi everybody. First of all, we want to thank the International Cooperative Alliance for putting together this webinar. It's been the brainchild of them within the COPAC movement, and we'd like to thank them for it. And as a member of COPAC, this is a landmark year for the ILO as we celebrate 100 years of the existence of the ILO co-op unit. The ILO, as you know, is a UN agency with a mandate on cooperatives, and despite being very old, the cooperative unit under the leadership of Samil Essam is as relevant and value-adding as it was 100 years ago. Cooperatives have played a key role in addressing global challenges, none more so than the current pandemic that we find ourselves in. Cooperatives also have, over time, played a key role in striving for social justice. However, as I repeatedly said over the last few years, there is so much more that the cooperative movement can do in attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. We have, during this pandemic, unfortunately heard some proponents saying that we need to focus on sustainable enterprises and organizations and how we move through the pandemic from crisis to reactivation and finally recovery, and that attention to a green recovery will come later. This is a big mistake and not the way to go. Economic, social, and environmental matters are inextricably linked, and all future actions should recognize this and follow this path. The cooperative model is perfectly placed in showing how this can be done and to lead the way. At this point in time, I wish to highlight two areas of focus. Firstly, the gender component of future thinking, because unless this is given specific attention, we'll continue to drift along. We cannot just raise our right hand in support and then leave it at that. We need to put some action into place. And secondly is the area of informality. We see that the pandemic has hit the informal sector more than any other area in terms of the devastation that it's caused. And we need to look at new models through the cooperative lens as to how we can play a positive role in the reactivation of not only the informal sector, but bringing them closer to formality. The cooperative movements have also played a key role in sustaining supply chains of essential services and goods by turning to their communities and relocalizing economies. Looking ahead, there are certain ingredients that are needed to ensure that social deficits are reduced and that a green recovery will become a reality. First and foremost, we need visionary leaders who will be able to see the opportunities out of what is a very depressing and challenging situation. And then we need to revisit our strategies, which are often found in silos, and to look to a far more integrated approach while building in specific actions that tackle the negative COVID impact on both people and planet. During COVID, we've seen how producer, consumer, and financial cooperatives have been able to successfully help sustain supply chains of essential goods and services. What we do not need is one part of an organization focusing on performance, another on social responsibility, and another on a green recovery. These three areas, as I've said, need to be part of a holistic approach. And by doing this, we'll be able to maximize our impact. With strong leadership and vision in place, and the strategic path, next comes the task of scaling up. We often forget about this. We have been in the past able to show and share great success stories, yet globally we've not been able to reduce the social deficit or address climate change with great impact. With the huge devastation brought about by COVID, affecting the well-being of millions of people, now is the time to scale up those pockets of excellence into something much bigger. At the global level, we need to build a stronger cooperative platform that can serve as a catalyst in growing the cooperative movement in the developing economies. And at national level, we need to work with governments in creating enabling platforms that will facilitate the creation and maintenance of strong cooperatives. The result will be a value adding to people and planet. The ILO is committed to its membership of COPAC and to working closely with its partners, and we look forward to a COVID-free and green future that takes cognizance of the informal sector and the gender agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Van Buren. Next on the agenda, we will have Bruno Roland, our Director General for the International Cooperative Alliance. Bruno, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Zoraida. Good day to all. In the name of the International Cooperative Alliance, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar to celebrate the 2020 International Day of Cooperatives around the theme of climate action. I want to really deeply thank United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and ILO Director General Guy Ryder for their messages for this International Day. They both recognized the key importance of cooperatives in the field of climate action. And I want also to thank the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, for co-organizing this webinar with us, and also to the other members of COPAC, the ILO, the FAO, and the World Farmers Organizations for taking part also in this webinar. You know, this is a very special year for the International Cooperative Alliance because we are celebrating our 125th anniversary. This means that for 125 years, the International Cooperative Alliance has been the global representative of cooperatives, which today are estimated to be around 3 million enterprises with 1.2 billion members, that's about 10% of humanity, and directly providing jobs or economic activities to around 10% of the employed population of the world. We have to keep these figures in mind when we think about the impact of cooperatives on climate action. Now, in our 2020-2030 strategic plan, we at the ICA are giving a top priority to the SDGs, and in particular to estimating and reporting the contribution of cooperatives to the SDGs. And that also includes SDG 13, which deals with climate action, so we will be working on that. During this webinar, we will hear emblematic cases of cooperatives involved in climate action, Creando Conciencia in Argentina, Communal Shamba Coffee in Tanzania, and Mid Counties in the UK. I thank them for sharing their experience with us, but there are many more cooperatives involving climate action in the fields of renewable energy, solar irrigation systems, organic catering for schools, and so on and so forth. And there are also many other cooperatives which at first sight, they don't seem to be directly involved in climate action, but have developed initiatives in this field. Now, I would like to very briefly share with you the main reasons why, in my opinion, the cooperatives already contribute significantly and can contribute even more in the future to combat climate change. And this is linked to the cooperative identity. This year, we are precisely celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Statement on the Cooperative Identity, which contains the cooperative's definition, values, and the latest version of their operational principles. Now, this identity is something which all cooperatives in the world identify with. Based on this shared identity, I think that cooperatives have three specific characteristics that explain their growing interest towards climate action. The first one is that cooperatives are based on meeting needs and aspirations of ordinary people, producers, consumers, informal economy workers, women, and so on and so forth. So cooperative members are also stakeholders. And as stakeholders, they also have needs, and their needs evolve, with climate change becoming increasingly something that does affect their needs and their life. The second characteristic is that cooperatives are based on the democratic control of these stakeholders onto the enterprise, all equally, by which these stakeholders are able to provide a very strong feedback about how their needs evolve, including how climate action affects them. They also participate in the decision-making process of the enterprise, and their decisions take into account their evolving needs, including in relation to climate action. And this gives cooperatives a strong capacity of resilience and adaptation to new circumstances, including climate change. And the third characteristic is that cooperatives are embedded in communities. So they are geared towards the long term naturally. And through this long-term entrepreneurial perspective, environmental considerations, including climate action, can gradually make business sense without necessarily contradicting the economic sustainability of the enterprise. And in addition, as they are embedded in the community, the cooperatives are also able to mobilize local resources for climate action. These cooperative characteristics which I just mentioned are becoming all the more relevant in this period in which we are facing multiple global crises, including climate change and many others like this ongoing pandemic is showing, which all have a deeper impact than before because the world is far more interconnected than it has ever been in history. Now, considering these cooperative characteristics and the urgency of the situation regarding climate change, the cooperative movement is ready to create effective partnerships with governments, with international organizations, and with the civil society organizations around climate action, with the corresponding public policies, of course. So I hope that you will find this webinar interesting, and I thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Bruno. Now we shall, this is exciting, we will now screen a short documentary on the cooperative in Argentina, Creando Conciencia Cooperative, and this is focusing on waste management. Enjoy.
Yo antes trabajaba en un comercio, tuve un negocio 21 años y debido a las situaciones del país y personales tuve que cerrar. Yo tengo 46 años. No es fácil conseguir el trabajo a los 46 años en Argentina, como que ya sos viejo.
Antes de venir acá, estuve trabajando de bachera en un restaurante de comida peruana y sushi. Y allá no me reconocían nada. Es más, me echaron de allá y tuve como 5 meses parada, sin trabajo, sin nada, con una nena de 3 años. Y estaba como loca yo en mi casa.
Fue hace 10 años, yo trabajaba en una multinacional, en una automotriz. Sos un número, sos una máquina, porque vos vas todos los días, construís y te vas a tu casa y no se preocupan si tenés frío, si tenés hambre, si tenés salud, si estás bien, no estás bien. En lo personal, para ellos no existe.
Bueno, yo vine, estuve 3 años sin trabajo, tengo 2 nenes, llevaba un peso encima que decir es conseguir algo porque tengo que salir adelante.
Antes de entrar en la cooperativa yo estaba sin trabajo, era algo más joven, estaba mucho tiempo en la calle, desperdiciando mi tiempo, muy desocupado.
Vendía rosquitas y churros, o sea, pan casero, por las casas, he hecho de todo. Lo que había lo hice. Gracias a Dios, porque es gracias a Dios, nunca me tocó dormir en la calle, ni con mi hijo, ni vivir en la calle.
A partir de la crisis del 2001, que golpeó muy fuertemente a la Argentina, comenzaron a surgir muchas cooperativas. En el 2006, cuando surgió la idea de Creando Conciencia, había mucho mal llamado cartoneros, y ahí surgió la necesidad de poder formalizar el trabajo y organizarnos. Es cuando en el 2008 conseguimos nuestra matrícula a través del INAES y podemos decir que formalmente estuvimos organizados a través de la cooperativa de trabajo Creando Conciencia. Comenzamos unos 6 socios, yo soy una de las socias fundadoras, cada uno aportó con su granito de arena, ¿no? Uno a través del conocimiento, otro a través del trabajo, otro a través de la capitalización.
Como un resultado de esa crisis del 2001. Y creemos que llegamos a esta nueva crisis, lamentablemente cíclica, con mayores armas porque venimos de ese proceso, pero también no estamos solos. No estamos solos porque somos 51 familias, porque impactamos diariamente en nuestro trabajo en más de 100.000 personas dentro de nuestro distrito. En crisis nosotros no echamos, nosotros incluimos. Y ese es el valor agregado que tenemos contra la empresa de capital. Nosotros cubrimos sus baches. Ellos recortan y excluyen. Nosotros incluimos y generamos propuestas a futuro.
Tomamos las decisiones correctas en los momentos correctos. Y estábamos en el lugar correcto en el momento correcto. Y algo que vamos a hacer los seres humanos todo el tiempo es generar más basura. Ahora, si yo logro profesionalizar esa separación de residuos, no tengo manera de quedarme sin recursos. Puedo discutir por el precio, pero el residuo lo voy a tener siempre. Podemos venir felices a trabajar, que podemos lograr contratos con las empresas, que podemos trabajar con los barrios privados, que podemos trabajar con los municipios, que podemos proyectar un futuro junto con los estados, independientemente de quién los esté gobernando o qué colores políticos tienen, porque hemos trabajado con todos los estados. Porque lo que ofrecemos es inclusión social y cuidado ambiental. ¿Quién puede estar en contra?
En un país rico que produce alimento para 400 millones de personas, más de la mitad de los 44 millones de habitantes no comen. Más del 51% de los chicos de la provincia de Buenos Aires son pobres. Hay chicos que están en una emergencia alimentaria y que no saben qué van a comer mañana. Vecinos nuestros, pasando acá a 50 metros. Nosotros, la cooperativa, estamos asistiendo a 10 comedores. 10 comedores en los cuales van 50 chicos por día. No puede ser, o sea, algo en este modelo mundial está mal. Y lamentablemente, 100.000 familias concentran el 90% de la riqueza mundial y entregando a todo el resto del mundo a una pobreza extrema. No se concibe, digo, vamos a entender, siempre hablan de Argentina, el país, el granero del mundo. El granero del mundo, y más de la mitad no come.
Yo tengo 5 hijos y trabajo hace aproximadamente 8 años. Soy administrativa, trabajo en la parte de administración. Estoy en el sector de equipamiento, donde se hacen los muebles de madera plástica y todas esas cosas para el municipio. Venía de situaciones feas, de estar sola, ¿no? Sola con los chicos, de que la gente te dé la espalda, de que la gente te engañe, te mienta, te juzgue. Uno como que después se queda como chiquitita, ¿no? Como que siente que no es nada, que se siente chiquitita. Cuando empecé en la cooperativa, bueno, uno empezó porque la verdad no había otra cosa, y bueno, y aparte era un trabajo estable, no era agarrar y decir, bueno, voy a tener trabajo todos los días. Entrábamos a veces a las 6 de la mañana a trabajar y estábamos hasta las 6, 7, 8 de la noche, porque había que sacar el material para vender, porque si no, no había plata. Para acompañar ese crecimiento de la cooperativa en estos años, yo tuve que sacrificar mucho tiempo, más que nada, ¿no? Tiempo con los chicos. Si bien la cooperativa también me acompañó en los 2 embarazos, y nunca un pero, siempre, mirá, necesito ir a hacer una ecografía, necesito ir al médico. Eso fue un gran acompañamiento de la cooperativa. No tenía obligación de hacerla y sin embargo, como el consejo y como cooperativa tomaron la decisión de acompañar a las madres y en ese proceso, porque después no fui la primera, pero después hubo más. La cooperativa me fue enseñando a ser mamá, a ser mujer, participar de la asamblea, tener un voto por parte de la cooperativa. Eso como que te ayuda también a sentirte distinta, a tener ese empoderamiento, como se dice, ¿verdad? Pero bien, ¿no? Bueno, no de creerse mejor que nadie, pero sí de no pensar que no sos nada, como antes, ¿no?
Allá en
Cuando comenzó la cooperativa no existía lo que era la palabra, o se escuchaba muy poco lo que era la palabra sustentabilidad, ecología, cambio climático. Decían, ¿qué es esto? ¿De qué estás hablando? Hoy, por suerte, cambió mucho todo lo que es la mentalidad. Se habla más de un planeta verde. Y también se está hablando mucho de lo que es la economía circular. Nosotros siempre estamos innovando, estamos trabajando muy fuertemente en unos muebles de madera plástica. Tenemos la marca Creando Equipamiento, en donde estamos desarrollando huerteras, ¿sí? Decks, bancos de madera plástica, que son todos muebles para exteriores. ¿Qué es lo bueno de todo esto? Que no estás talando árboles y también estás reutilizando un montón de residuos que uno no sabe que está consumiendo y que van directamente al relleno sanitario. Entonces, en vez de ir a un vertedero, directamente, bueno, vos estás sentado sobre residuos y vos no lo podés creer.
Esos fines que nosotros le exigimos y le pedimos a los gobiernos o a los grandes poderes del mundo que conserven nuestro planeta. ¿Qué hacemos nosotros mientras tanto para eso, no? Y creo que hay una enorme cantidad de experiencias de empresas cooperativas como Creando que hacen ese trabajo en el territorio y que a la vez de llevar ese objetivo generan empleo, generan trabajo, y generan trabajo digno y generan trabajo con inclusión. Cuando nosotros decimos inclusión es para la enorme cantidad de gente en el mundo que ha quedado fuera del sistema, producto de la enorme precarización. Creando Conciencia ha recogido a una enorme cantidad de trabajadores fuera del sistema, los ha insertado en el sistema de nuevo, tienen acceso al crédito, tienen acceso a la banca, tienen acceso a una vida mejor, tienen acceso a la salud, a otro tipo de salud mejor. Y esa experiencia multiplicada en muchas más, creando conciencia en nuestro país, en otro país, va a hacer también que nosotros hagamos nuestro aporte para salvar este planeta, para mejorar esta sociedad en que vivimos, que sea más justa. Es decir, hay una enorme brecha entre los que más tienen y los que menos tienen. Y creo que este es un ejemplo vivo de cómo acercamos a los que menos tienen con los que tienen un poco más.
Yo vengo re antes acá. Yo salgo a las 5:30, porque no estamos entrando temprano, pero nosotros venimos a tomar mate, esperamos que vengan todos los compañeros con la vista vieja, con ella, y lo tomamos mate y quedamos con unos par de compañeros que están los primeros. Y después llegan todos. Así que yo vengo re temprano para acá.
La diferencia que hay entre lo que es la cooperativa y el trabajo anterior es que lo mío antes era muy unitario. Hacía todo yo. Atendía, traía el material, me encargaba del orden, de las ventas, todo. Y lo que a mí también me enseñó mucho la cooperativa en este momento es aprender a tratar con muchas personas a la vez, de distintas ideas, formas, carácter. Eso también me fue educando a mí y enseñando en crecer como persona, se puede decir.
La verdad que estoy con muchas ganas de terminar el secundario porque yo terminado en 2017, terminé y me habían quedado materias. Esas materias las dejé porque empecé a trabajar y al empezar a trabajar y conseguir dinero trabajando, dinero más rápido, dejé el colegio de lado. Después conseguí entrar acá y me permiten, me dan mi tiempo de poder ir a estudiar también. Aprovecho, cada vez que salgo me pongo a estudiar y hoy tengo que ir a rendir para ver cómo me va, y depende de hoy cómo me vaya, me van a dar mi analítico.
Creando conciencia es esto, crear conciencia, enseñarle a otros que lo que tenés que hacer para ayudar a gente, para ayudar al medio ambiente. Crear conciencia es esto, aprender a hacer cosas nuevas y a querer ser mejor persona día a día.
pude crecer demasiado, no voy a llegar a poder superar un sueldo mínimo para vivir, y la verdad que ahora estoy viviendo sola. Mis hijos pueden tener todo lo que no tuvieron cuando eran más chiquitos. Es como que decir, crecí un montón en lo económico y personal también, ¿verdad? Una historia media complicada, pero la verdad que me sirvió un montón. Estoy súper feliz de lo que logré ahora, progresar en la vida. Pasamos mucho tiempo acá adentro y se formó un ambiente re lindo. La verdad que tengo muchas personas atrás de que me siguen y están siempre, son leales. Son una familia ya. Todos somos creando. Así que todos somos creando ya.
Una empresa multinacional decía que después de los 1.000 millones de dólares de inversión generaba 50 empleos. Creando Conciencia nunca tuvimos 1.000 millones de dólares y generamos 51. Eso es lo que el mundo tiene que entender. Que el desarrollo es local y el desarrollo de nuestra sociedad, de las cooperativas, las mutuales, las entidades de la economía social en los formatos mundiales que uno quiera interpretar según la legislación, trabajamos en el desarrollo de nuestro territorio, en nuestras localidades, no fugamos la plata a paraísos fiscales para pagar menos impuestos y no aportar. No, al revés. Nosotros invertimos en que el comedor de acá puedan comer los chicos, en que los trabajadores de Creando Conciencia compren en el mercado local. Digo, toda la plata que genera Creando Conciencia en Benavides, se queda en Benavides. Eso es lo que tenemos que seguir fortaleciendo.
Wow, I should start my morning every day with something as inspirational as that. Thank you very much. Now, we are very fortunate to have the creators of this documentary with us, Sarah Vicari and Andrea Mancori. They are the founders of AroundTheWorld.Coop, and this is a project formed in partnership with the ICA, within the ICA EU partnership, Coops for Dev, as you saw in the credits. They both traveled the world to tell stories of success and innovation about the cooperative movement. So I'm very pleased to have them with us. Sarah will now share a few remarks with us.
Thank you. So Mr. Alejandro Verdier, Chargé d'Affaires and Interim Ambassador of Argentina, distinguished representatives of COPAC members, fellow cooperators around the world. It's a great honor for Andrea and myself to join you today to celebrate the International Day of Cooperatives and to have the opportunity to share with you the story of the Creando Conciencia Cooperative from Argentina, one of the stories that we documented during our Around the World trip. Our remarks about this story come as a result of the joint work we carried out with Creando Conciencia and reflect the opinions of the two organizations. So let's start. Firstly, this COP experience conveys an important message. It's indeed possible to combine climate action with the development of a sustainable enterprise, decent work, and inclusion of marginalized people. Even more than this, some figures about Creando Conciencia Coop indicate that there is still a huge potential out there to unlock. Let's consider that this COP processes and reinserts into the market, on average, 220 tons of waste per month, while only in the municipality where they are located, the generated waste per day is more than 800 tons. That is to say, every day a COP like Creando Conciencia could be created, and more waste could be recycled. Secondly, the name that the COP members chose for the COP is very evocative and meaningful. Creando Conciencia, that literally means creating consciousness, raise our inner awareness. About what? About the fact that to protect the environment, we have to act now. And all of us, no one excluded, we are all responsible. Actions start at home, at work, at school, learning how our actions affect the planet, and figuring out what we can do to play our part in protecting the environment. But it's not only that. Naming the COP in this way marks the fact that COPs are made up of human beings with a conscience. And therefore, COPs are not only a different means of production and consumption, but most notably, they are a way of living. They are the form of business appreciated by people who value and care the fact that all living beings, not only human beings, should have the same opportunities to prosper and thrive, the importance to create a respectful environment based on reciprocity and empathic, non-violent, and not exploitative attitudes. This is what the name stands for. Thirdly, and lastly, the fact that the world's challenges are increasing complexity is in front of everyone's eyes, and the pandemic we are all experiencing is the most recent evidence of this. We suppose we are all agreed that solutions to new problems require innovative recipes. It's fundamental to look at what is happening in the COP movement and also in other grassroots movements like the broader social and solidarity movement, the feminist movement, the ecology movement. Cross-pollination through diversity is at the basis of innovation and creativity. It is where new forms of participation, inclusion, production, and consumption thrive and show the way to effective solutions that are less patriarchal, less exploitative, and more in harmony with the planet. As we had a fantastic opportunity to learn during this around the world trip, COPs are key agents of this transformative agenda. We hope that stories like the one of Creando Conciencia can be an inspiration to many communities to transform their own territories and play their part in acting against climate change, as well as to policymakers and other institutions to support these kind of experiences that can so greatly contribute to achieving sustainable development worldwide. From our side, we will continue to do our bit by combining participatory research and video making in order to bring successful COP stories to life and sharing them with the wider society. Our next step now is to set up our own COP with other 5 fantastic professionals, and by doing so, to feel even closer to the COP community. Once again, thank you very much for inviting us. We wish you all a very productive and fruitful seminar today.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Andrea. I am inspired by your work and stories you tell, always. Next, we move from Argentina and we go to Africa. From Tanzania, we have Mr. Karemba Warioba, the Managing Director of Communal Shamba Coffee. So now let's hear how Mr. Warioba and his cooperative are taking action against climate change.
Hello, everyone. Hello, the excellencies in the room, and thanks for the opportunity given by us by ICA. The little that we're doing down here, I'm the Managing Director, Karemba Warioba in Tanzania, and we're a small company, a right-hand company that works, that's owned by co-op farmers. And what we're doing, we're especially working with coffee, and what started as an idea of like reducing operational cost and trying to find better prices for the farmers. Some also ended up becoming our climate action in the same side. We try to produce coffee, and the usual traditional way of producing coffee is like you harvest coffee, you pulp it, and then use plenty of water to wash it through before you get to a point where you dry it on the drying beds or on the ground, so that you can get optimum dryness that's ready for roasting and consuming the coffee, as we all know. So finding alternative of finding better prices, and for the farmer, we had to address issues that were costing the operations, sort of like cut down the cost of operations so that we can at least leave the most of what we sell to go back to the farmer. And in the process, we invented we adopted, or let's say we invented, an old way of drying coffee. So we started harvesting the coffee as it is in a cherry form, and create a protocol of controlling it. And in that process, we dry it as dry cherries, so it becomes what's famously known as natural processing. So you just naturally dry the cherries, but you have to address different protocols to ensure that the process of drying it doesn't over ferment, or the fruits don't go off and end up spoiling the actual coffee itself. And we've managed to do that for almost 5 years now, and that has become sort of like the main produce and of what we sell. But at the same time, once we dry all that, it goes in a dry mill, and once it's all dried up, the pulp, the milling of the coffee itself, that dry skin that's left on the skin, has now become also a second product. So we use that to create a compost. So we kind of like mix that with the manure, and we allow that to kind of like break down, and then what we get out of that, we sort of like throw it back to the farms. So it's turned out to be a double advantage for us in terms of climate actions, because the very first one of not depulping the coffees allows us to save a lot of money. We reduce pollution of the near water systems, and sometimes also the ever draining of the washing coffee. That water kind of like turns the soil infertile. So for us not to doing all those things allows to also save the water, protecting the environment, allowing the land to be fertile, because where we dry the coffee, also in the rainy seasons, small farmers plant their beans and maize and all that. So allowing the land being productive, it's the initial effort of what we do. And then the second one becomes the off product after milling of the dry skins, where they go back to the farm and sort of like regenerate the farms, the land, the soil, and probably also it's always seeing good little chickens running around the farm picking on that rubbish too. So yeah, on our side, I think we're looking at trying to develop this model to sort of like reach out more cooperatives or more farmers to adopt this model in our environment. So first of all, as we can get more income for the farmers by reducing operational costs on the working capital, at the same time to also bring to impact on the actual environment and sort of like reducing the pollution. As we can see, it's also impacting our climate on this end, especially farmers' environment. So I think that probably sums it up all together for what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warrior. I look forward to hearing more from you in our discussion later in the program. There's a lot, I think, that we can cover there as well from the agricultural sector. Next on our list, we have two presenters from Mid-Counties Cooperative, the largest consumer co-op in the United Kingdom. We have Mr. Mike Pickering, who is the Corporate Social Responsibility Officer. And with him is also Pete Westall, who is the Chief Values Officer. They both will present to us and also be available for questions later. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, and thank you for welcoming us to present our story. I'm going to run through what we at the Mid-Counties Cooperative are doing to engage with our members to take action on climate change. First of all, I'm just going to share some slides with everybody so they can see some of the things that I'm talking about. Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody can see those. So for us at the Mid-Counties Cooperative, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are very important to us. as they are with co-ops all around the world. And this was evident certainly on the International Day of Co-ops and also during Coops Fortnight here in the UK. And I'm going to come on to more details around that in a moment. For us here at Mid-Counties, member insight and member engagement is vitally important to us. We're constantly engaging with members in everything that we do, trying to find out insight from our members so we know what our members want us to do, and we develop our programs around that member insight. So that democratic engagement is key all the way through for us. And the program that I'm going to talk about is our One Change program, and the member insight and engagement side of this is really important to us, and it's really at the heart of One Change. So we launched One Change because we wanted to do our bit to help tackle climate change. And one of the key things that we had feedback on from our members is that a lot of people want to do something around this issue, but they don't know where to start. So what One Change enabled people to do is just one simple thing that individuals can do to make a difference. But the important thing here was that we then played these changes back to members so they could see collectively the difference that they are then making. Using this insight, we were then able to, as a society, also see what was important to our members so we could then make changes ourselves. And ultimately, we were able to develop collaborative projects that we could work together and influence other co-ops around this important issue. So we're constantly checking back in with members to make sure we're aligned along this journey. So we initially launched this by engaging our members in a number of ways. In our stores, we had some signage to encourage people to perhaps choose different things, different products, perhaps things that didn't include plastics, and various other responsible choices. We ran member events, we did some social media campaigns, website engagement, and also some educational leaflets and information around the impacts of climate change. As a result of this campaign, we enabled over 1,000 members to make a change. So that's 1,000 pledges of people doing things differently to help defend the environment. The really important thing for this process for us, that this enabled us to get member insight on what members wanted us to do as a society. So as well as engaging members to do their change, we were able to decide and prioritise what we could change as a business. And overwhelmingly, our members told us that tackling single-use plastics was a really key priority for them. So we did a number of things. The first thing that we did, we engaged with our environmental ambassador, Cal Major, who's well known in the UK for environmental campaigning, particularly for tackling litter from waterways. And we developed various educational leaflets, campaigns and events for the next generation, our partner schools and for our members to engage them in tackling plastics. But we also made commitments ourselves as a society. And one of the things that we did was eliminate single-use plastic carrier bags from 140 of our food stores, replacing them with compostable bags. And this alone reduced 3 million plastic bags per year from circulation. Taking this even a step further, we've made a commitment by the end of this year to eliminate all single-use plastic bags from our food stores. Our members have also shown an interest and a desire for us to do more around community renewable energy. And therefore, through our Co-op Energy business, we were able to support 80 community energy groups within the UK to help them bring their power to market through our community power tariff. And the great thing about this campaign was the cooperative element to it, the collaboration. We could work together with members to achieve various things. Community tidy-ups was really important to our members, and our colleagues, members and local schools all got involved in various events across the UK to do this. Another thing of interest was our members stated that they wanted us to do more with waste plastics and actually find something useful to reuse them for. So we implemented our EcoBricks program to do this. And this is essentially waste plastic bottles filled with other waste plastics that then form bricks. And the picture on the bottom right-hand corner is a turkey shed that's been created from these EcoBricks. And these have been made in collaboration with local members, schools, colleagues, and various other members of the community, with one of our community partners, Fairy Tale Farm in Oxfordshire. And this is a great example of how you can reuse plastic for something useful. And this takes me on to the final part of the One Change campaign. We're really keen to ensure that this leads to change across other organisations and other co-ops. And we've tried our best to share our findings with various co-ops. And it was really pleasing to see during Co-ops Fortnight this year, the joint statement by the major co-op retail societies signed by the CEOs of those societies, pledging their support for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I'm now going to hand over to our Chief Values Officer, Pete Westall, to do a closing summary.
Thanks, Mike. 1995, the International Cooperative Alliance adopted through, as Bruno said earlier, the statement of the cooperative identity, the identification of 7 guiding principles for co-ops around the world. These are recognised by all members of the Alliance as being the way that we should and do business. The concern of cooperatives around climate concern is not new. The increasing gravity of the global environment problem was recognised in General Assembly of the ICA in Mexico in 2011. It's been stressed again on this webinar through various speakers. Our cooperative founders wanted us to do more than simply establishing and operating enterprises. They were concerned for social justice, and they were concerned for the communities in which we all live. Perhaps now, 125 years after the formation of the ICA, it is time to consider a new principle, an 8th principle of taking action on climate change. On behalf of mid-counties, on behalf of, I suppose, all co-ops in the UK, a thank you to the ICA, a thank you to the UN for organising this webinar, but also for allowing mid-counties to share our story and show how we put our values in action. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mike. I feel like we need to move rather quickly, only because I know there are a lot of questions and I want to give the speakers an opportunity to respond to some of them toward the end. So moving on, next we have from Nepal, Meena Pokhrel, who is the Deputy General Manager of the Nepal Agricultural Cooperative Central Federation, who is here today on behalf of the World Farmers Organization. Ms. Pokhrel, please.
Namaste and greetings from Nepal. First of all, I would like to thank you World Farmers Organizations and International Cooperative Alliance for providing me an opportunity to share the information and contribution of the agriculture cooperatives and climate change and action taken by NACCFL and its member cooperatives. Nepal Agriculture Cooperative Central Federation is an umbrella organization of small farmer agriculture cooperatives and similar type of agriculture cooperatives distributed across the country. Currently, we do have 1,082 member organizations and more than 1 million small farmer household, and it consists 82% of women and almost 40% youth of Nepal, and total beneficiaries consist of 5.1 million. NACCFL has involving in policy advocacy, network expansion, capacity development, and increased production and productivities, and facility to value chain development and market linkage for agricultural products. Even during the COVID pandemic also, as we know, farmers of all over the world are busy to feed the entire world. Our farmers are not an exception, though their vegetable products were being dumped. The focus of our cooperative has been under the cooperative principle. For example, concern for community. Within the principle, our cooperatives has actively been involved in activities that address to climate actions. I will further speak in details about that. Under the principle of that, cooperatives has been actively trying to contribute to zero hunger, equality, along with social and ecological justice. These are some examples. Promotion of the organic farming. NACCFL has promoted organic farming in 14 cooperatives. And organic farming helps to reduce the greenhouse gas, as we know, and organic farms have lower nitrogen level. This practice also helps to combat the global warming by storing carbon in the soil organics. Support for renewable energy for 500 cooperatives, that is biogas, and in this connection we have presented the paper also, the contribution of the small farm agriculture cooperatives to reduce the climate change impact. So cooperative promoted renewable energy biogas in more than 15 cooperatives. And primary cooperatives are providing soft loan to their members for the installation of the biogas and solar power irrigation system, both, which help to replace the fossil fuel and reduce the carbon house gas emission from the irrigated agriculture field. Similarly, promotion of the preservation of the local seed, that there are 10 primary cooperative initiatives to promote and preserve the local seed, and which local seed are in the source of the local genetic diversity, and it can easily adopt in the prevailing climatic condition, and this is one of the best strategies for adaptation to the climate change, and we are promoting this. Agroforestry, and we have promoting our cooperative for agriculture, agroforestry that improve air purity by absorbing carbon and improve soil management and the pollination. And these are all the examples. And this climate smart agriculture within 300 cooperatives, and NSCCFL has promoted the climate smart agriculture through a number of cooperatives in mid-hills and especially high hill. The package of practice like cattle seed improvement, plastic tunnel, water harvesting pond, drip irrigation, women and youth-friendly tools, seed treatment, soil treatment, home garden, IPM-based organic, IPM-based farming, etc. And this is the zero plastic campaigning. This is by our youth and promoted the zero plastic campaigning, especially in hill and mid-hill of the Nepal. And no green campaigning, youth involved in the forestation, plantation, and all these things. Family farming campaign also, NSCCFL is the secretariat for the celebration of the International Year of Family Farming and +10. So action, that is how we are doing, that is facilitated to access to eco-friendly agri-food, skill, finance, land, technology, and the service, which contributes the Sustainable Development Goal also. That is, and providing subsidy loan to women, youth, facilitated by cooperatives. Creation of the platform to access the farmers to local, regional, and center market. And I have already mentioned that 82% are the member of the female. So support for the integrated livestock farming system and help to improve the policy environment in favor of the youth and women, support for receiving and formulation of the farmers-friendly policy. Empower women, youth through the engaging them in income generating activities, access to rights, increase capacity, technical advocacy, and leadership skill. That is what we are doing since our establishment. Adoption of innovation and good practice for the climate change adaptation in agriculture, including existing coping practice, indigenous knowledge, and safety in cultivation. Increase rural employment and reduce rural to urban migration of youth and women through involving in agriculture activities through family farming campaigning. I have already mentioned that we are the Secretariat of the celebration of the International Year of Family Farming 2014 +10. And promotion of bioengineering and landscape and soil erosion area. These are all the things that we are doing action. And though the COVID-19 has causes the devastating damage in life and economy, it has highlighted great environmental problem the world is currently facing. Especially in Nepal, rural population has realized the importance of the agriculture and the role played by the farmers in daily lives. That is what. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Pokral. Next, we will hear from the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization, represented by Mr. Guilherme Brady, the head of the Unit for Family Farming and Partnerships with civil society organizations within the FAO's Partnerships Division. Mr. Brady?
Thanks a lot. It's an honor to address you in the framework of this celebration. First of all, I really wish to congratulate COPAC and especially ICA and UDESA for this relevant moment, a needed encounter in this very particular moment that we are living, and for all the continuous dedication in favor of cooperatives. First of all, I would like to mention that for FAO, cooperatives and producer organizations in general are strategic partners in the work we do to achieve the objectives of our mandate and to support actions for the achievement of the SDGs. They play a fundamental role in ending poverty and improving food security and nutrition for all. And why is that? Is because we are living on a world with such complex challenges that it is really necessary to find more ways to strengthen collective action, to bring solutions to these challenges and to address them in a more multidimensional way. And cooperatives, they can bring it. They are ready to do it. They have this potential to be an engine of sustainable development in all of its dimension and to promote economic inclusion, as we saw from the several examples that we have listened. So I really commend the work of all cooperatives and its board and its members that stayed focused on the fundamental principles of the cooperative movement until today. This is really remarkable. And I'm very happy to be part of this discussion. So I would like first to bring some elements related to food and agriculture sector perspectives, relation to climate change. I was requested to bring some points related to women and youth. So after years of decline, global hunger is on the rise again, okay, driven by conflicts and climate change. Those are two particular reasons. Very clear. There is a very clear linkage of the global hunger rise in areas, in regions where you have conflicts or great impacts of climate change. So this is one first point. And the second point is that we are having increasingly countries coexisting with undernourishment from one side and obesity from another side. Okay. At the same time, poverty still shows a rural face. More than 79% of the world's poorest people living in rural areas. And from another side, we have a situation where at the moment, we produce more food than we need as a global population. 1/3 of this production is lost and wasted. And the final result of this equation is, from one side, a growing number of undernourished people and a global growing number of obesity or people with malnutrition. We have several serious impacts on the depletion of natural resources, rural poverty, and very often this rural poverty affects exactly the same ones that produce the same food that we eat. What is a contradiction? So we are at a crossroad now, and the current challenges that we have on the food systems, they require much more complex responses than in the past, where we tended to look at the need to increase production. Right now, we need to see how to increase access to food, more specifically access and distribution of food which is healthy, nutritious, sustainably produced and culturally acceptable. And also at the same time, see how to reduce inequalities. This is crucial to bring people at the center and to be able to achieve SDGs. So the inequalities that exist on the access to markets, in the value chains, etc. And family farmers and their cooperatives have the unique potential to drive this transition to more sustainable food systems, because they are rooted in their communities. They understand the local ecologies. They are well positioned to offer contextualized and solutions and long-term solutions. There is ample evidence that the climate change is having serious effects on agricultural production and the livelihoods of millions of farmers. Climate variability and the degradation of land and other natural resources are changing rural landscapes across the world. Past crises showed drastic effects on the food security of the world's poorest. And considering that family farming is characterized by this unique nexus between the family and the farm, in an emergency situation such as the current one we are living, interventions really have to ensure rural families' livelihoods from one side, and at the same time uphold and incentivize the continuity of the production, but setting the basis for climate resilient production systems, like looking at the emergency as an opportunity to go out of it with a better base than the one that we have now. And on specifically on women and the youth, well, women and men experience climate change impacts or of any other crisis differently due to their socially constructed roles and responsibilities. Women are almost 50% of the farm labor is performed by women, but they hold only 15% of the farmland. For every 100 men living in extreme poverty, there are 122 women. So there is a clear evidence of inequality here in the situation. And women's vulnerability is exacerbated by lack of or limited access to productive resources, knowledge, and information, lack of political representation, and access to channels of decision-making, and exclusion from formal economy. Consequently, they are significantly more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and they have lower capacity to adapt and diversify their livelihood options in order to be more resilient to climate change. I have several examples on how these affect, for instance, more specifically, women on the agriculture sector, let's say crop failure or water scarcity, increase pressure on women to guarantee enough food and water provision for the household, and increase their workload. Their ability to generate income is reduced. The competition that the climate change creates with the degradation of the natural resources reduces even more their capacity to access the natural resources or the lands, or especially the good lands. And there are also strong evidence that crises, they increase gender violence, as we are facing this specific moment. But from the other side, women are the guardians of traditional knowledge. Very often they are, for instance, the seed keepers of their communities. Their wisdom could help communities to build resilience and diversify strategies, restoring ecosystems and agro-biodiversity. On the youth, the climate change also affects because it triggers migration and intensify the socioeconomic factors, such as rural poverty and food insecurity, that drives young people away from communities. And from the other side, when we know that when we bring youth to rural areas, we also bring a number of different resources, skills, capacity of network, capital technologies, market and management practices, allowing for innovation in the farming, fishing, forestry sectors. So they are key to design and implement effective mitigation and adaptation strategies, while guaranteeing the economic stability and autonomy of young family farmers.
Mr. Brady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you. We are running a little short on time. If you could wrap it up, we have one more speaker.
Sure. So just to finalize, so but for these groups, I really think that the interventions should combine affirmative policies from one side, reducing the existing inequalities, but only this is not enough. It's important to fill the gaps that exist in rural areas in terms of services and infrastructure. Very often the decisions of the young people to stay in the rural areas are related to off-farm issues, culture, education, etc. And cooperatives, they can play a strategic role on this. I will end up just referring to some opportunities at the national level that was requested to me related to the UN Decade on Family Farming. We launched it last year. And we have a clear target of create 100 national action plans for family farming, okay? We have 7 pillars, and 5 of the pillars are addressing topics that we are discussing today. We have a specific pillar for youth, gender, resilient agriculture. So the opportunity is these plans will develop the policies, the measures, combining the different topics that we have in the global action plans. And it's a great opportunity to bring these topics into the table of negotiation, the dialogue with governments, with other organizations, to have a clear roadmap on which are the national strategies to address these problems, these issues, and bring more resilient family farmers, and to strengthen the organizations. There is a specific pillar also that on the need to strengthen the capacity of the farmers to cooperate, to be together, to develop their own solutions, and to recognize the services and the work that they are developing. So thanks a lot, and sorry for taking longer.
No, no worries at all. I have to say that we could talk about this all day, I think. And I've been told that we can extend this webinar by just a few minutes after to leave room for some questions, hopefully at the end. So last but not least, on our esteemed speaker roster, please welcome Ms. Wenyan Yang, Chief of Global Dialogue for UNDESA's Social Development Branch. Ms. Yang, the stage is all yours.
Let me turn my video and my
Welcome.
audio on. Thank you, and greetings from, well, also home office in New York. First, I want to thank ICA, our great partner in doing many things, in particular organizing today's webinar to celebrate the International Day of Cooperatives for the year 2020. And also I want to thank all the speakers who have shared their insights and inspiring stories of cooperatives in action to address climate change or pandemics or nutrition and food security. So that it goes without saying, and with this audience in particular, that cooperatives are very critical players in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda that's captured by the 2030 Agenda and the 17 Development Goals. Just a few words about where I work. For those of you who don't know, we are a division. We are the Division for Inclusive Social Development in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs of the Secretariat of the United Nations. We are the focal point in the UN system in supporting member states in promoting the development of cooperatives to leverage cooperatives' contribution to social development for the global implementation of the 2030 Agenda. In this role, we promote and support the growth and development of the cooperative enterprise model through our work with the intergovernmental bodies such as the General Assembly and the Commission for Social Development of the United Nations, that those intergovernmental bodies formulate global policy guidance that member states will take up on in their national development strategies. So this part of the work, although it's a little bit not directly related to cooperators, but fundamentally is very important because it guides your national development strategies and the kind of support national governments would provide and the kind of enabling legal and legislative environments that you operate under in your country. So I just want to say those few words since it's not, might not be immediately apparent to lots of the participants today. Dear friends, I think that the COVID-19 crisis we are experiencing now is really a call to action to stop environmental destruction and slow down and reverse climate change. The pandemic highlighted the connection between human activity encroaching on ecosystems and increased risk of outbreaks of new zoonotic diseases that could cause pandemics. The tremendous human and socioeconomic toll of the COVID-19 crisis underscores the urgency for climate action and for a green recovery to help prevent future pandemics. As my colleague from the ILO had underscored, that it's a mistake to think that we should now focus on reactivating the economy and think about green economy later. We cannot wait to later. We need to think about a greener economy, and our policies and measures in the response to the pandemics has to be rooted in promoting a greener recovery. And the COVID-19 crisis has severely disrupted global supply chains that have led to supply side shocks throughout the world, resulting in economic contraction and dire social consequences that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. This has prompted a rethinking of the prevailing production and consumption patterns that depend on global supply chains and minimal inventory. Now we see a business case for a movement to localizing production, in addition to what environmentalists have been advocating for in the benefit and sustainability of the natural environment. In this sense, COVID-19 crisis created a rare opportunity to promote a greener recovery that is a plus for slowing down climate change. This momentum for change in the patterns of production and consumption is a favorable development for the cooperative enterprise model. In this sense, I have three, briefly talk about three reasons for my thinking this way. One, cooperatives always care for the environment and the community. And this has been a guiding principle of its business model. We have heard from previous speakers on the 7 principles of cooperative. This is one of the important ones. And we have also learned the good examples of cooperatives in action for climate. And second reason, the global spread of the virus and the fact that we, peoples of the world, are in this all together, re-highlighted the value of solidarity and mutual support. These are also principles that are fundamental to cooperatives. So the values of the cooperatives are being understood and emphasized by people who are not already cooperative members. And three, COVID-19 crisis has also led to an increase in remote working and collaboration. Today we are having a meeting online. While cooperation and solidarity is in the blood of cooperative enterprises, current adaptation of the way we work, the general public, namely more online and with greater cooperation, means a more welcoming general social environment for the cooperative ways. Work online also means it is easier to work and collaborate across time zones. Today is just an example, right? We live in different time zones, but we are together online for this very important webinar to celebrate the IDC. This enables cooperatives to cooperate more internationally and to conduct more business among themselves and tap into broader national and even international markets via online platforms. The last point about more online working and cooperation and online platforms brings me to the issue of information technology and cooperatives. Information technology digital tools and platforms have been playing an increasingly important role in business, with revolutionary impact on the way business is done in many areas. Take retail. These technological advances and innovations have also opened up opportunities to reduce the carbon footprint of human activity. Almost all UN resolutions on cooperatives in social development calls for increased capacities of cooperatives to use information technologies for their own operations. Many cooperatives are also working on the platform economy and at the cutting edge of online commerce and development. So as some of you may know, the United Nations also provides capacity development support to member states. In this framework, the Division for Inclusive Social Development, where I work, organizes policy, makes policy advices and recommendations, and organizes training workshops to cooperatives and countries to strengthen their capacities, including in applying new technologies and in the mitigation and adaptation to climate change. We will continue to collaborate with the COPAC partners and with the cooperators worldwide to promote cooperative action on climate change and in application of information technology for the growth of cooperative business, as well as for transition to greener growth. So with those words, I thank all the participants, and I particularly thank the cooperative participants around the world for the work you do, for your everyday efforts to promote cooperatives and to contribute to realizing the sustainable development goals for all people over the world. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Yang, for that. So that concludes our speaker list, and we have my colleagues tell me that we can extend this by a few minutes, so I want to get right into it, and I'm going to set the stage here a little bit, and then what we've been hearing, and I'm going to present a question or two from what we've received from our participants when they're registered, or even now as we were having this conversation. What I've heard, I think the theme here today is that cooperatives have solutions. I think we'll all agree to that. Whether it's from the ground level up or collectively as cooperative communities coming together to offer, to take action, basically to fight against climate change. Now, what is also obvious to me today as a theme is that we're still talking about this, right? 20 years from now, we don't want to be having the same conversation about having to fight climate change. Hopefully by then, things will be better. So my question to present right now is, how can cooperatives, and this is a question that came up, how can cooperatives partner better with governments to scale up some of the solutions to the national level? And I think for something like this, Mr. Van Buren, if you're willing to address this for us, because I know this is a topic that's dear to you.
I think first of all, it's going to have to be customized from one government to the next, because there are at differing levels of progression. But I think it has to happen on a structured basis. And what we want to achieve within the UN system is to try and approach governments on analyzing what they've got and trying to help them improve their enabling environment. Because only once there's an enabling structure in place, an enabling environment, will you be able to have really concrete discussions. So what we'd like to do is to partner with governments to try and upgrade what they've got and to learn from those developed economies that have achieved huge successes in this area. And then it's for the practitioners and the experts and those who've got experience with the cooperative movement to then up the game and discuss with governments. But we've got to convince them that it's important and that it's a priority. Otherwise, we'll always find it as a last point on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, so then I think this is a good way to segue also into, as you said, that we try to learn from each other. And I can't remember who said this, that we all need to strengthen the collective action. I think Mr. Brady was the one who said that. And so that's grassroots, as we say in America, right? How do we build from the ground up the cooperative movement? So, and of course, these days we hear a lot from the youth, because they are our future, which I'm very pleased with. And so the question is, how do we promote cooperatives within our youth in all sectors? And I'm not so sure who'd be willing to take this question, but so what are the challenges there? You know, how do we collectively strengthen this movement from the ground up within our youth, because they are indeed our future? I can use the old-fashioned hands up if somebody would like. Mike, I hear you, I see you. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll certainly take that on behalf of the Mid-Counties Cooperative. So I think certainly to give a practical example from our point of view, we've done a lot of work with schools. We've partnered with 50 partner schools across our trading area. And what we've done with those partnerships is we've worked with them closely to understand their needs. And we've been able to provide cooperative solutions to their needs by working really closely with them. And by doing that, we embed the cooperative principles within those schools. We get that two-way engagement, and we're able to develop various things. And working with them, we've developed various education programs relating back to cooperative values. We focus on things like Fair Trade Fortnight. And it really does give a great input into the schools and the next generation. And as I said in my presentation, it is the next generation that are really driving forward things like tackling single-use plastics and defending the environment. And there are some great synergies with that age group. And that's certainly been our approach. That engagement with schools is certainly been very effective for us.
Lovely, thank you very much. Now, I think we're running close on time. I do have one more question, and Mr. Verdier, I'm gonna put you on the spot if I may. You've been very patient and you were the first speaker. You come from the high level of government, and we all know, everybody's here because we all love the cooperative movement and we're big supporters of the cooperative movement. I certainly have been inspired today. Can you share with us maybe your thoughts about how governments can provide an enabling environment for these wonderful cooperative from the cooperative movement, but all the cooperatives from different countries, at the policy and maybe at the legislative level, about how they can fulfill their role within the framework of climate change?
Well, you know, we are big defenders of Agenda 2030, and we believe that the objectives settled in this ODS, SDGs, are our Bible, and we together as member states can help our governments to define which are the best way to complement the SDGs of the Agenda 2030 with our local realities, which vary from one country to the other, and also vary from one period of history to the other. As you know, in the case of Argentina, our economic situation has been going through cycles of best days and bad days, and it is hard to have a legislation that can cope with these cycles. But I think we should all observe the SDGs, and these are very good principles and guidelines for all of us to keep and streamline the process. And cooperatives are, of course, one of the best tools that we have in bad times and in good times to foster our economies and our social development. So we truly believe in cooperatives, and the SDGs are the best way to achieve what we all aim at.
So we will count on you to be an ambassador for the cooperative movement, yeah? Not just in Argentina. I'm managing to squeeze one more in, which I'm very pleased with, because this is a topic that's dear to me personally. Mr. Warioba, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a moment, since you spoke very well regarding the situation in Tanzania, and also the importance of making cooperatives more attractive to the young farmers, right? And for women and in Tanzania. If you could answer this question for me, is that how do we, what are your thoughts on how we make cooperatives more attractive so we can grow this movement within the farmers in your part of the world? Let's see if he's here. Can you hear me, Mr. Karemba? Oh, he may not be there anymore. I'll open up this question to anybody else in the group. I know, Mike, you had a very good thought behind that. I was more thinking of getting into a different sector. Mr. Brady, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Or anybody for that matter, we just have a few minutes.
Oh, I think it's important to, as Mike mentioned, right, to adapt the services that the cooperatives are developing to the members, to the needs of the youth. I think Sarah and Andrea, they've seen several cases around the world that certainly could bring very concrete examples on it, but I think there is a need of renewal, definitely, an adaptation to the new moment, and adapting also the services in order to bring the cooperatives need to be interesting for the members. And then it's about how to achieve this interest from the young generations.
Yeah, that is true. And I have to say that, and I'm sure Sarah and Andrea will agree with me, and is that sometimes you need to inspire people, and we do that through stories. Mina, I hear you raise your hand. I see you raise your hand.
Yeah, for example, that we have already sent more than 2,000 young farmers to Israel under the heading of On and Learn program, and they learn the existing practice of the agriculture of Israel, and they complete their training there. So to retain the youth within the agriculture, they need skill and soft loan, both. So upon the completion of this training, the youth are here, come to Nepal, and they started agriculture enterprise, and they are very happy to do this. So this can, by providing skill and soft loan, we can retain the youth within the cooperatives. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I've been told now my phone is beeping that I need to close. I could seriously talk about this for many more minutes. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending. Every time we do this, it inspires me in different ways, and it confirms the fact that I'm very proud to be part of this global cooperative movement. I believe this will be put up on various, this is recorded and it will be posted on various channels, I believe, for anybody who's missed it, if you want to share it with your colleagues or your friends. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you very much to our speakers who took the time to be here today. We've had, at any given point, close to 200 participants today. Thank you very much. We hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.